Deleted, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Just when you think you have heard everything, a top politician in the UK has just dropped a statement so shocking that it is causing a massive diplomatic and political storm across the world. Suella Braverman, the former British Home Secretary and a current member of parliament, didn't just dismiss the idea of British paying reparations for slavery and colonialism. She took it a step further. She publicly stated that former British colonies, including Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda, should actually be paying reparations to London. Think about that for a second. The ZAD countries that were stripped of their resources, labor, and wealth for generations are now being told they are the ones who owe the British Empire money. This statement didn't come out of nowhere. Right now, there is a major shift happening globally. The Jamaican government recently announced that they are bypassing the British Parliament completely and taking a formal legal petition straight to King Charles III, demanding reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. When that news hit the media, British politicians started panicking. Suella Braverman went to X, formerly Twitter, and wrote something that turned the entire history of global colonialism on its head. She wrote, and I quote, "The British Empire did so much good for the world. Of course, slavery was abhorrent, but to expect the British people of the 21st century to pay for actions that took place in the 18th century has no basis in law." End of quote. And then came the line that stated the fire. She said, quote, "If the government is seriously thinking about this, then former colonies should pay the British back for the considerable investment, effort, and contribution that this country made, which laid the foundation for many flourishing democracies today." End of quote. She is literally asking Africa and the Caribbean to send a check to London to say thank you for colonialism. Let's break down this word, investment, because this is the lie they always use to justify the empire. They say, quote, "We built your railways. We built your ports. We gave you a legal system. We gave you schools." End of quote. But anyone who knows history knows that colonial infrastructure was never a gift to the African people. Take the railways built in the Gold Coast, modern-day Ghana, or Nigeria and East Africa. Those tracks did not connect African cities to help local people trade with each other. The tracks ran exclusively from inland gold mines, diamonds mines, and agricultural plantations directly to the coastal ports. The only reason those tracks existed was to move raw wealth out of Africa and onto British ships as fast as possible. And who paid for those tracks? They used local African tax money and forced local African labor to build them. African resources paid for the very tools used to rob them. To call this a British investment is like a thief breaking into your house, stealing your goods, using your money to buy petrol for the gateway car, and then demanding you pay them back for the petrol. There is another massive historic fact that completely destroys Braverman's argument about 21st century British people not paying for 18th century actions. When Britain finally abolished slavery in 1833, they did something incredibly wicked. They did not give a single penny of compensation to the millions of enslaved Africans who had been worked to death. Instead, the British government decided to compensate the slave owners for losing their property. To pay off these wealthy British slave-owning families, the government took out a massive loan of £20 million. Back then, that was 40% of the UK government's entire annual budget. It was so huge that the British government couldn't pay it off for nearly 200 years. Britain alone finished paying off that slave owner compensation loan in 2015. This means that for generations, modern British citizens, including African and Caribbean immigrants who moved to the UK, had their tax money used to pay off a loan that enriched slave owners. So when a politician stands up today and says there is no basis in law to pay reparations because the history is too old, they are lying. British law was actively enforcing payout for slavery up to 2015. If we look closely at the specific countries Braverman is talking about, the idea of Africa owing Britain becomes even more disrespectful. Look at Ghana. Before independence, it was treated as an agricultural and mineral farm for London. The British controlled the cocoa marketing boards, setting artificial low prices for African farmers while selling the cocoa globally for massive profits that stayed in the UK banks. The gold mines of Obuasi were stripped of their wealth for decades under colonial law that gave virtually nothing back to the local population. Look at Nigeria. The entire country was literally created by British corporate and imperial interests. It began with the Royal Niger Company, a literal business trading in palm oil and resources before handing control to the British Crown. The regional boundaries and economic systems were set up purely to make it easy to export crude materials out, leaving behind a structural fractured political landscape designed to serve foreign markets rather than local unity. Look at Kenya. The British didn't just extract resources. They stole the land itself. They forced the local population out of the white highlands, the most fertile, high-yield agricultural land in the country, and handed it to the white British settlers. When the Kenyan people fought back for their land during the Mau Mau uprising, the colonial response was brutal concentration camps, torture, and systematic violence. So when they talk about we paying them reparation and not the other way around, they need to come again. And this is where we ask the question, who benefits from all these things? Who really benefited from slave trade? Because at the end of the day, we've seen that nothing of ours benefited us. Even today, nothing of ours is still benefiting us. So if they are talking about 18th century, we are seeing that everything they enjoy today is as a result of the 18th century. So why are they enjoying the things of 18th century, yet they don't see the need for them to pay for the same thing they are enjoying from the same year they are running away from? How do we then pay the people who are taking everything from us? Like Amma Ata Edo will ask, ever since we came in contact with you, look at us. Over 500 years ago, you keep taking and we are still taking. We have never been the same ever since we came in contact with you. Even in Ghana, we have the cocoa, we export it raw in a very cheap form, then we import chocolate that even the farmers can't even afford. Niger was giving light to Europe and France, and the Nigerians were sleeping in darkness. So when they tell us that it is Africa that rather needs to pay them reparation, then they need to come again. That is why we are calling for the African unity. It's only in our unity that we can free ourselves. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in the United Kingdom.